Tarzan is lured away from his jungle domicile next week. His domestic bliss with Jane is shattered when their son is abducted and taken to New York, and Tarzan swings across the Atlantic in the rescue attempt. That's Tarzan's New York adventure next Friday evening at 5:45. This Friday evening on 2, there's Oxford Roadshow in 5 minutes. Then at 7:40, more instruction tuned to hold down a chord playing folk guitar. In the Country at 7:55 gets to know the pigeon, the problem bird of town and country that still provides endless fascination to pigeon flyers and fanciers. Trade union law is examined in Newsweek at 8:25. At 9, Mike Harding vents his spleen against Attila the Budgie. Playhouse at 9:25 highlights the enmity between two Royal Navy apprentices at a wartime training establishment in Cornwall that builds up to the grudge fight. Newsnight is at 10:45. And Friday night, Saturday morning takes BBC2 across midnight with Mariah Aitken. That's the evening ahead. After the news summary now from Louise Batchelor.
Good evening. Tonight's main story, the Common Market Summit ended a short time ago at Lancaster House in London, with no agreement on Britain's plans for budgetary and agricultural reform. A few moments ago, Mrs. Thatcher, who chaired the summit, opened a press conference. She told reporters that the discussions with the other 9 community leaders had been very constructive and not at all acrimonious, but they couldn't agree on certain key points. So there's to be a special meeting of foreign ministers as soon as possible to try to sort out the problems. Now that and the rest of the main news with subtitles. The Common Market Summit in Lancaster House, London, ended a short while ago, with no agreement on budget reform. Britain, chairing the meeting, had proposed a set of guidelines for reform to the other 9 community leaders. The negotiations began yesterday. They all agreed on the principle of reform. The details were more difficult to arrange. Mrs. Thatcher said foreign ministers of the EEC countries will meet as soon as possible to sort out the problems. Members of the new Social Democratic Party have been celebrating their victory in last night's Crosby by-election. Mrs. Shirley Williams won the seat with a majority of more than 5,000. The Conservatives' candidate came second, Labour's was third and lost his deposit. The opposition leader, Mr. Michael Foot, said the Crosby result was a serious setback for the Labour Party. But Mrs. Thatcher pointed out that 23,000 voters had maintained their support for the Conservatives at a difficult time. In Northern Ireland, an army corporal has been seriously injured in a car bomb explosion near the border in County Fermanagh. He was trying to clear civilians from the path of an empty car which had been aimed at an army checkpoint. The 200-pound bomb in the car injured 3 other soldiers and 4 civilians. They've all been released from hospital. And in central Belfast, a man was shot in the shoulder and leg by a gunman on the back of a motorcycle. Esso petrol tanker drivers and depot staff will be urged to go on all-out strike at a union meeting next Tuesday. Union officials at Shell and Texaco are recommending one-day stoppages, of which the managements won't be given any warning. The dispute at Independent Television News is to continue. Striking technicians voted by 2 to 1 to reject a pay offer. ITN has screened no news bulletins for a week. The dispute is over the operation of new videotape machines. The BL car plant at Longbridge in Birmingham is to open for normal production on Monday, despite the stalemate in the relaxation time or tea break dispute. The BL Cars management say that any of the 2,200 strikers who turn up for work will be paid. One of the SAS men who stormed the Iranian embassy in London last year and rescued 19 hostages was buried today. He was Sergeant Leslie Barker, aged 34, from County Durham, who was killed when his parachute failed to open during an exercise in the Middle East. The Israeli Prime Minister, Mr. Begin, is recovering in hospital after breaking his leg when he fell in his bath. His condition is excellent, say his doctors, and he'll hold a cabinet meeting from his hospital bed on Sunday. That meeting is expected to reaffirm Israel's rejection of European participation in the proposed Sinai peacekeeping force. In the first test match at Bombay, India were all out for 179. Ian Botham and Graham Dilley took 4 wickets each. At the close of play, England had scored 15 runs for the loss of 1 wicket. Graham Gooch was bowled for 2. In Newsnight tonight at 10:45, we'll be looking at the political background to next week's Russian-American summit on medium-range nuclear weapons. From Russia, Charles Wheeler has a rare interview with an official from the Communist Party's Central Committee. From America, we hear from Senator John Tower, and E.P. Thompson gives the reaction of the European peace movement. At home, we'll be looking at wine bars. That's Newsnight at 10:45. Now look at the weather chart.
Showers will continue overnight in the north and west, but elsewhere it'll become mainly dry with clearing skies. Tomorrow will be rather cold and windy again, with sunny intervals and showers. In the north and west, some heavy showers are likely with snow on northern hills. The maximum temperature up to 9 degrees centigrade, 48 Fahrenheit in the south, and only 5 centigrade, 41 Fahrenheit in the far north. BBC2 is heading to the northeast now in search of the answer to the intractable question, whatever happened to the likely lads, Terry and Bob, otherwise James Bolam and Rodney Bewes, about to have a heart-to-heart over the meaning and mystery of life. That's except in Wales. The centre of Manchester is the venue now on 2 for the next 40 minutes for Oxford Roadshow.